I'd like to see an alignment of the head, heart, and the gut.
Yeah.
So do your research on the beginning. Check out that book or check out some different webinar opportunities or even local seminars.
This is the How to Quit Working Show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working Show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working Show. We've got such a great show today, really going off of our normal path today and talking about franchises. I get a lot of questions, and one of the questions that I get a lot is about franchises. And folks say, Jeff, are franchises good or are they bad? And that's what all the questions boil down to. They boil down to, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And the reality of it is that is not a yes-no question. That is a very complicated question that is not answered by yes, they're good or no, they're bad or anything like that. It's answered by, is it right for you? And that is the question that Chris Coleman is going to help you answer today is a franchise right for you? It's something that comes with a lot of pros and a lot of cons and everything in between. And it's just a matter of thinking about, is this the thing that is right for you? It may be a great option for you. It may be a terrible option for you. And Chris, the great thing about Chris is he's not married to either option. He's married to helping you find out the right way or what's right for you and what will help you to be successful as you start your business. So great stuff with a really smart guy who is somebody who I met, and I said, you've got to come on the How to Quit Working show and talk to my listeners about this because they're going to love it. Now, before we get into that, though, I want to remind you that if what you're hearing on the How to Quit Working show is resonating with you, if you're listening to the show and you're thinking, gosh, I really like these interviews, I really like what they're talking about, then engage deeper with us because the show isn't all that we have here. And the best way to get deeper with How to Quit Working is to go to howtoquitworking.com/webinar and join the live webinar. Now, I'm doing these on a regular basis. So if you go to howtoquitworking.com/webinar, you can get registered and you'll get notified when there are webinars coming up. So really encourage you to go over there. And what we talk about on the webinar is, how do you start a business that actually makes money in 30 days? And here's the differentiation of that between that and what people normally do. Like what we normally do is we get a business idea and then we put up a website and the website just sits there and never, ever, ever makes any sales. We maybe put it on a business card and nothing happens with it. I call those phantom businesses, and there are so many of them out there. Whenever somebody says to me, look, I have a business, here's the website, I always in my head think, is this one of those phantom businesses that's just a website sitting out there? Well, we talk about how do you skip past all of that and create a business that actually makes money, and you can do it in 30 days. And in fact, I'm going to show you examples on the webinar of some folks who have gotten some results really, really quickly. So go to howtoquitworking.com/webinar and get registered for that, and sit back, take notes, and enjoy this conversation with Chris Coleman, who's going to talk to us about franchises. Chris Coleman, welcome to the How to Quit Working show.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, going great. So glad to have you here. You know, we've got a private Facebook group, and one of the things that we do over in that group is we talk with people who are starting a business. And a lot of questions come up, and one of the questions that came up recently was, what about franchises? People seem to kind of want to know, what's the deal with franchises? How does that work? I know McDonald's is a franchise. I know it's really expensive to open a McDonald's. So I thought, let's have somebody on here who can really tell us about franchises and the ins and outs. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you do in your business today.
Well, again, thanks. It's great to be here with you. And sure, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and our company and who we serve. My name's Chris Coleman. I've been tied to a franchise since I was probably about 3.5, 4 feet tall. So I've been involved in a franchise ever since I was a young guy, and grew up in a family. We had 6 pizza restaurants. and went to work for an automotive franchise out of college. I was with them for 13 years before I decided that I needed to quit working for someone else and work for myself. So franchising tended to be the best avenue for me, since I'm not that go out there and create all kinds of new ideas and products guy. Show me a good proven system and I can follow and execute a good strategy. So I ended up purchasing the FranNet franchise. And FranNet is the world's leader in franchise consulting. What we do is we help people all over the world. We're all throughout North America and almost every major metropolitan area in North America, as well as in Germany and the UK now as well. And we assist people who are interested in owning a business, kind of like that, me, how I was many years ago. We wanted to have that control and that pride in business ownership, but we didn't want to go out and reinvent the wheel. So what we do is we help people identify franchise opportunities that fit them on several different levels, not just fits their budget. So that's what we do.
I see. Very cool. I love your story, because when you were 4 feet tall working in those pizza restaurants, that wasn't yours. That was your family's restaurant, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So you're kind of a franchise family.
Yes, we are. Yes. Always been tied to it in one way or another.
Yeah, that is very cool. Well, tell us a little bit about you mentioned a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. I want to dive down into a little bit further, but what are some of the things that are unique about being a franchise owner? Well, okay, you know what we should do really, Chris? We should back up and just define franchisor versus franchisee and kind of the difference in the relationship there.
So the word franchisor would refer to the company who is offering hopefully a proven business model for someone who would in turn be eventually the franchisee, who would purchase the rights, possibly a territory to market a product or service within a given area. Some people will use the word franchisor, ER, is referring to the franchisor, OR, and those terms are somewhat interchangeable. But that's the person that is offering the opportunity, and the franchisee, again, would be the person who purchases that opportunity from the seller.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned some really interesting things about sort of get into the ins and outs of being a franchise. A franchisee is the term that we'll use here, because that's really kind of what we're talking about for our audience. So talk a little bit about what are some of the things that are beneficial about being a franchisee, and how is that different than just going out and starting your own business?
Sure, there's a lot of benefits to a proven system. Many of the business and people that go out and actually start their own business from scratch, they've never done this before. They know how they have a lot of talent in certain areas, but possibly they haven't worn all the different hats as the chief marketer, the chief operations, and all those different roles. Sometimes that's where a franchise can be very, very beneficial, where somebody can come in and help you. Me, myself, I'm not that creative guy, as I mentioned before. I've got a great marketing department that I can lean on, for slides and booklets and things like that require something, where I would need to grab somebody's attention.
Sure.
So there's a lot of benefits to a franchise. Ideally, it's been proven at least a handful of times over to be successful, if not thousands of times.
What are some of the downsides of owning a franchise?
Okay, so the catch to some franchises, you take the show Shark Tank, for example. You see those people that are sitting up on the stage and listening to all these ideas that are pitched before them.
Yeah, we've had a number of the contestants on the show.
Yeah, and sometimes those people, the Mark Cubans of the world, they might not be the greatest franchise owners because they might feel like they're in a box. So I've heard people refer to a franchise as a business with training wheels, and some people who have a very large need or a very large creative outlet that they need to fill, sometimes they're not a very good fit for franchising, because the people that succeed in franchising, always the top 20% of any franchise, if I connect with franchise owners, those top 20% of the people, I ask them, what's their recipe for success? And without fail, every single time I follow the system. So somebody who is willing to follow a proven system, not go out and try and fix the system because they know better, those are the people that tend to have problems in franchising.
What are some examples, Chris, of things that are part of the system? Like, kind of give us maybe some nuts and bolts of what does it mean to follow the system? Maybe some examples.
So a lot of times people will refer to a franchise when once you become a franchise owner, you receive some initial training and some ongoing support as well. But what you'll get is almost essentially a playbook on how to execute the strategy to roll the business out initially, on how to go out and build the business as you need to take it to the next level. So following along those, even if you look at it like a train, staying on the rails, or even a highway going, you want to start getting off at exits and exploring a little bit. Maybe we can offer another type of service. That will probably slow down your success in franchising. So sticking to the model or the playbook tends to be the best scenario.
What kind of things might be in that playbook? Like things like... Sure. Does it help with marketing? Because I know that's one of the big concerns that folks have about starting a business is I don't know how to do marketing.
Yeah, hey, and I certainly resemble that statement. I'm not a marketer. I'm a relationship builder.
Yeah,
that's where I tend to feel most comfortable. But for different businesses, that might mean here's when your store is getting ready to launch 2.5 weeks out. We are going to blitz every house within all the zip codes in your territory with a direct mail and coupons. We will track how well they work and tweak as they go along. It might mean opening up doors to national partners. If you're not a person that wants to go out and build it, you're more of a build it and they come type. But there's a lot of different things. Whether it would be marketing, the operations. Many franchises will help with accounting on the back end side of things, and some franchises will have a call center as well. So, say you have a service franchise. So somebody who's there 24/7 around the clock to be able to field a lead. Maybe if you've got a business that services a residential property, and somebody has a problem 3 a.m., you're hopefully not awake and able to answer that call.
Sure.
You're sleeping pretty. But somebody in North Carolina might take that call and set up an appointment for you or one of your technicians the next morning. So lots of different areas. And think of support is what I like to think of. When you think of the word franchise, I try and equate it to the word systems. There are systems in place to help you succeed, whether that be marketing or operations or anything else.
Very cool. Do all franchises kind of offer the same type of support, or does it vary by franchise?
It really does vary. And a lot of times that's tied to the maturity of the franchise. So a young franchise that's just getting started, they may not have a whole lot to offer. And a lot of times the investment is a lot lower at that time. But as a franchise matures and they need to add infrastructure and national support and regional support, even local support, sometimes the investment will go up.
I think one of the questions that a lot of folks ask is franchising good or is it bad? And I think we hear the same thing with like MLM and internet marketing, all these different ways to make money in business. We tend to be looking for the is it good or is it bad option. And I think really the better way to kind of reframe that question is it right for me? Chris, who would you say is someone who a franchise is right for?
Yeah, and again, I think it's probably that person who is willing to work within the confines of a proven system or strategy. So the question is a franchise good or bad? The answer is yes. There's a couple different roads we can go down. There are good franchises and there are bad franchises. Ones that have a very good proven system in place, and lots of training, lots of ongoing support, and a great culture. And there's other ones that are, tend to be possibly even a little short-sighted on their vision. They're looking to collect a franchise fee versus build a relationship and collect a royalty on the end, more that long-term approach. So there's some differences in just the franchises themselves. And again, going back into the individual, you have to have a certain mindset to be successful as a franchise owner. And again, it comes down to the system. You don't have to be an expert in a certain field. As a matter of fact, many of the clients that we work with, some of the businesses that we end up recommending are businesses that they never would have thought of their own. They just have some common denominators amongst the other owners, and they're willing to follow a system and be trained by the franchisor to become an expert.
What are some of the downsides of a franchise?
So some of the downsides, well, for starters, there's about 3,500 of them out there. At least I stopped counting around 1,000. So, some of the downsides to franchising might be that there's so many of them out there that it can be difficult to identify a handful of them to research side by side. Kind of like how you might go out and look at a house or a car or another large purchase.
Yeah, I think some of the big business magazines do a directory, and it's like a thick book that they put out every year of franchises, like hundreds or thousands in there.
Yeah, it's now what the yellow pages used to be.
Yeah.
Those two have kind of traded off on how thick they are. But there's thousands of them that are out there. They're not all created equally. I will attest to that. So that can be a downside to franchising, is that it can be difficult to identify the right ones. With most people, their initial search takes them to the internet, just like any other purchase.
Sure.
And there's, I know this is a news flash here, but there's bad information on the internet.
No, not our internet.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry. Hate to be a spoiler. But, a lot of times you're just the recipient of, whoever has the best search engine optimization based on the keywords you entered for a search. And not always, what opportunities are going to be the best for you.
Yeah.
So that can be a downside to franchising.
Yeah, definitely. Christy, you talked a little bit about franchise fees and royalties. Can you tell us the difference between the two?
Sure. Franchise fees, it's an initial one-time fee that you pay to be part of the system, to possibly acquire that initial training or to own certain territories that may be protected. So there's a lot that goes into the actual franchise fee, but it's a one-time fee. And those fees vary greatly from system to system. These days we see a lot of franchises charging between $25,000 to $50,000 on average. And obviously, if you want to go to multiple license, which is a strategy for many, the cost goes up. But sometimes those second, third, and subsequent license are significantly discounted. So the franchise fee is just that one upfront fee that you pay. There may be some renewal fees as you may extend a contract after 5 or 10 years. But then royalties are on the back end. And those tend to be calculated upon a percentage of your annual revenue.
Okay.
For sales. So that's an ongoing thing. And they can, the franchise fee can be great. A royalty can be great if there is value there. Not all of them have a tremendous amount of value to us. So there's a lot of due diligence that goes into making sure you're getting something for your money, not just initially, but ongoing as well.
Very, very interesting. Now, you talked a little bit about territories and multiple licenses. Tell us a little bit about kind of how does all that work? One location versus territories or things like that.
Yeah, and this varies franchise to franchise as well, and sometimes from one industry to the next. But franchising, a lot of times we see everybody's familiar with the McDonald's, the Subways, things out there. It doesn't make sense to have these things stacked on top of each other unless there's a market to support it. So what a lot of franchises will do is they will put up some protective boundaries for that franchise owner to give them comfort that they can grow a successful business within that given territory. And what a lot of people will do is they will take a multi-unit approach when they go into franchising, for various reasons. Sometimes it's easier to have a manager running a location, and you kind of oversee all the 3 or 4 different locations, but also can be a great way to generate wealth, by scaling out and going for a multiple franchise approach.
Excellent. So one of the things you're talking about with protections is like if I open up a McDonald's franchise, part of my agreement would be that McDonald's won't let you open one within a certain distance of that, right?
Yeah, some franchises will have that actual protected territory. So you look at it on a map, and it almost looks like a brick wall. No one else can come in there. However, there are many franchises where they're not protected territories. It's kind of you're looking at a designated marketing area, or DMA, as some of them will call it. In certain businesses, it doesn't make sense to have territories. You need to be able to follow a lead. So let's say that you work with an owner who has a couple of gas stations, and he's got them in this area of town, but out west he's got a location as well. You should be able to work with him too for certain types of businesses. So a lot of the business-to-business opportunities that are out there, sometimes they don't have protected territories, but the franchise itself won't put more than a certain number of owners within a certain metropolitan area.
I gotcha. I see.
So there's not actual borders that you can't go outside of with some businesses, but some of them, you're strictly prohibited from marketing outside your territory.
Sure. Excellent. Well, I did my best to ask the questions that I think are useful to ask, but I don't know anything about franchises. Most of what I know about franchising, Chris, I've learned from you. So what is the question that I have not asked that I should have asked you?
Well, the question I get frequently, a couple questions I get frequently. One is people say, what's the hot franchise these days? And that can be a double-edged sword right there, because sometimes as quick as a franchise will get hot, they will get cold. So you have to be very careful when looking at what's hot. Now, some of those lists that are out there, they're very resourceful. You can find out a lot of information on trends and things like that within certain industries. But you do have to go out and do a ton of due diligence and validate that. So, what's hot today, like I said, could be cold tomorrow.
Sure.
But the other thing that I get frequently is, well, how do I find the right fit for my business? How do I find a handful of businesses out there that might be, something that would be a great opportunity to invest in? That's what, our service, there's other people out there that do what we do as well. But taking a very strategic approach, and dare I say even a scientific approach, we use a complete behavioral mapping analysis to make sure that the people that we're working with look like successful people in franchises. So there's a lot of resources that are out there, even just within the local community. Just business resources, and we're closely affiliated with a lot of them. SCORE, the SBA, Small Business Development Centers. There's a lot of things that you can do before you really start to get too in depth into franchising, into a particular franchise. So there's a lot of good books. I think for any of your listeners that might be interested in digging into the topic a little bit, there's a great book out there called Street Smart Franchising. I recommend it, and I actually buy it in bulk and give it to my customers, or clients that come through the door. Great book just to kind of help you understand what franchising really is, what you should be thinking about, setting a solid foundation, what do finances look like, and make sure the timing is right, or even how to find a reputable company to help you in your search for the perfect opportunity.
Excellent. Street Smart Franchise. We'll link that up below the show. Chris, what would you tell somebody else who's out there listening who is thinking, this might be for me. I think I might like to, learn a little bit more about it. I think I might be ready to take that next step. What would you tell that person?
Well, they certainly can go to our website at www.frannet.com. There's a lot of educational opportunities that we provide on a monthly basis. We do webinars. We do a couple different forms of webinars, and you can see all the events listed on our website just to start to get an education, because what we like to do is say, okay, franchising can be very good, again, for the right person, and here's where people are making it happen, and they're becoming successful in the franchise industry. But also, here's what starting from scratch looks like, and the pros and cons to it, as well as buying an existing business, and the positive and negative aspects of that. So we try and help people figure out which shoe seems to fit the best. So we offer a business ownership exploration webinar once a month, but we'll also, out of 100 some odd franchises that we work with, we'll highlight one particular franchise every month. Now, it might not be the right franchise for somebody, but every person that's ever listened to these webinars has said to me, I heard something that really struck a chord with me. What that does is it helps you start to analyze or look in the mirror a little bit and say, okay, I'm starting to develop a needs and a wants list and what's right for me. And that's really where you start. I think a lot of people start at the other end and they're looking for something that they emotionally attach to or visually attach to on the internet. Versus, let's take stock in what we have, what types of resources, how much time do we have to allocate to a business. So, educate yourself, and there's a lot of other good websites out there as well, but obviously I'm biased to ours.
Absolutely. We can get that at frannet.com, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll link that up below the show. Chris, what's the last thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, what I'd say is, whatever you do, if you're thinking about franchise ownership, my advice would be to start with looking at all the different aspects of franchising and those pros and cons. We go in pretty far in depth as to some of the pros and cons and some of those webinars that we do, but there's a lot of different resources out there for you to tap into before you start to get really drawn in or singularly focused on a particular franchise. When you look at an opportunity, whether it's a franchise or not, maybe it's another type of business or a large purchase, a house or car, you usually don't just look at one. And a lot of people do look at one franchise and they get emotionally invested into the idea of it. And sometimes the heart takes over and the head. I'd like to see an alignment of the head, heart, and the gut.
Yeah.
So do your research on the beginning. Check out that book or check out some different webinar opportunities or even local seminars. Those can be a great starting point to help somebody effectively and quickly rule in or out the idea of franchising.
Excellent. Great advice. And all of the information about Chris and his organization and how he may be able to help you will be at howtoquitworking.com/franchise. Again, howtoquitworking.com/franchise. So you can go there to get any more information about Chris and FranNet and franchising. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks for sharing all of your knowledge with us so generously. And I look forward to seeing what amazing things you do in the future.
All right. Great to be with you today, Jeff.
Great information from Chris about franchises, and I think that the most important thing that we did in that interview is we really kind of changed the conversation from are franchises good or are they bad to is a franchise right for me? And I think after listening to that, you should have a really good idea of whether that's something that you should pursue or not, and all of Chris's information is going to be linked up below the show at howtoquitworking.com, so head over there and get more information about Chris and his franchise net company and how they might be able to help you. Now, if you really loved what you heard and you are really ready to get started building a business, whether it's a franchise or not, and you're ready to have somebody who has been there, who has done that, who has created multiple successful businesses and done so in a way that allows her to put her family first, because that is what is most important to Heather Osgood, our How to Quit Working coach. Go over to howtoquitworking.com/coaching and find out how you can get help from Heather and have someone there to guide you right along the way. Again, howtoquitworking.com/coaching, and I look forward to talking to you next time on the next episode of the How to Quit Working Show.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working Show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.